But today is a very special day, the 21st of November.
Father, today
Come
last
on.
day of the ordinary term, tomorrow onwards.
Amazing.
Okay, that is also there. But what is more important? Eve of Saint Cecilia's feast. Tomorrow is Sunday.
Tomorrow Sunday.
Yeah, it's also the eve of Christ the King, man.
Yes, that's also very important. But there is something special about the 21st of November. Come on, who can tell me?
Father,
Come on, yeah, Ulrich. Presentation of our Blessed Virgin Mother. Yes, today's that is there. Sure. Tea with something to do with tea with Salesians. Something special about tea with Salesians. Okay, y'all are racking your brains, but you're not. No, y'all are not troubling it too much. I think. Come on. Someone tell. Are Satish, you can tell us, man. You've been since the inception of tea with Salesians. You've been there with us. Father Kenny is here. That is surely a big day to celebrate.
ask my professor, Father Matthew.
Father Matthew, you are also there since the inception. And obviously the sisters also were there. We complete 1 month for tea with Salesians. 1 month and no. Father Bosco, you want to give them the answer? My partner is crime was on the other side.
So today is the 21st of November and this is the 21st episode of Tea with Salesians. So that is the special.
Oh,
Amazing.
Yeah, we can clap.
Okay, my dear friends, no, something that started tea with Salesians is divine providence. Okay, it is the Lord and His goodness the situations that came about, and He in His infinite wisdom put that seed of the idea in our dear Father Leon's mind that why don't we have an online forum where the youth can come and where we can meet and we can talk and enjoy tea together and then discuss on different topics that interest us, topics that brings us together. And that is divine providence. And to emphasize more on this topic of divine providence, we have an esteemed personality with us. And this personality is dearest Reverend Father Kenneth Pereira. Father Kenneth Pereira holds 2 master's degrees, not 1, 2 master's degrees. He has been the novice master, 3. Father Matthew is saying he's 3. And he has been a novice master in the past. He has guided many brothers, he has helped many brothers, and now in Divyadan, he's teaching our brothers philosophy, and more importantly, he helps and he guides brothers to make decisions in life. So Father Kenny is so well equipped with this knowledge on this topic of divine providence, and he's here to help us. Over to you, Father Kenny. You can now tell us about this great topic of divine providence and how God helps us to grow and to glow. Over to you, Father Kenny.
I'll do the best I can. Okay. Thanks for those words of introduction, Leon. And it's nice to see so many of you on the screen. I wish we could actually sit and face each other and talk it out. But even this is quite a nice way of keeping in touch. Father Leon approached me a few days ago and asked me to give a small presentation on the topic of divine providence. So I sat down and put my thoughts together. And this is more or less the fruit of my reflection. Let me read out for you, first of all, a passage from the Gospel of St. Matthew that talks about divine providence. So here is the passage. Jesus says, "Therefore I tell you, do not be anxious about your life, what you are to eat or drink or wear. Is life not more than food and the body much more than clothing? Look at the birds of the air. They neither sow nor reap nor gather into barns. And yet your heavenly Father feeds much more value than they are. Therefore, do not be anxious, saying, what shall we eat? Or what shall we drink? Or what shall we wear? Your heavenly Father knows that you need these things. Instead, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. Well, my dear friends, this is a classic passage that speaks to us about God's providence. When we think of the specific role that God the Father plays in our lives, two things stand out. First, that he is our creator. But beyond that, that he is also our sustainer. God has loved us into existence. But beyond that, he also, that each time we recite and say, give us today our daily bread. I suppose you realize all our essential needs. And in the final analysis, it is God who provides for all these needs of ours. Have you ever stopped to say thank you to God for providing us with all our basic needs? Some of you may say, I don't need to thank God for it. Whatever I possess, I have earned by my own hard work. Well, you are partly right. But think of this. There are many others who have worked just as hard as you, and yet they do not enjoy the benefits that you have, for whatever reason. This consideration itself should alert us to the realization that it is not our labor alone that brings us all the benefits that we enjoy, but our labor backed by the provident care of God. Psalm 127 puts it very beautifully when it says, if the Lord does not build the house, in vain do its builders labor. If the Lord is not guarding the city, the watchmen are wasting their time. Well, my dear friends, God's providence in our lives is unobtrusive. It does not thrust itself upon our attention very forcefully. So don't expect that when you pray for something, God will drop it into your lap from heaven. God's providence is of a more subtle kind. Through the very regularity of nature that God has ordained, helping crops to grow and trees to bear fruit, God assists man's effort to provide food for himself. How strange it is that people should fail to recognize God's hand in all this. And yet, when there is a cyclone or a flood or a famine, people are quick to call this an act of God, in inverted commas. God's providence normally reaches people through human channels. When someone reaches out and helps us in a time of need, or when many human factors work together in our favor, bringing relief to us in the midst of a tense situation, has it ever occurred to you that it is God himself who is behind all this? I'm reminded of a joke about an Irishman who was having trouble finding a place to park his car in a crowded parking lot. Finally, in his desperation, he made this prayer to God. Oh God, if you give me a place where I can park my car, I promise that I will never again touch a drop of alcohol. Well, he was a fellow who loved the bottle a lot. He had barely finished making this prayer when right in front of his eyes, a lady reversed her car out of the parking spot and created a vacant space for him to park his car. The Irishman at once corrected his prayer and said, "Oh, it's okay, God, don't trouble yourself. I have just found a vacant parking spot all on my own." The saints were keenly aware of the working of divine providence in their lives. Take the example of our own Father Saint John Bosco. In spite of his resources being so meager, he was able to look after 600 boys in his boarding at Valdoco. He was even able to build two magnificent churches, one dedicated to Mary Help of Christians and the other dedicated to the Sacred Heart. No, God did not directly put the money into his bank account, but help somehow came from numerous benefactors who brought him donations. We can confidently say that God was behind it all. That's the way divine providence works in its nitty-gritty. There are, of course, certain exceptional occasions when God directly intervenes with a spectacular miracle of providence. For example, when Jesus fed the multitude in the wilderness with 5 loaves and 2 fish. Or when St. John Mary Vianney found that his empty granary had become full overnight with no human intervention. Or when Don Bosco multiplied a small quantity of chestnuts on All Souls' Day so that all his boarders could have their fill. These, of course, are exceptional situations when God directly intervenes. They are an exception rather than the rule. So just keep this in mind. God could be inviting you to be a channel of his divine providence in the lives of other people who are needy. And so let me conclude with a thought-provoking anecdote. There was a sincere young man who one day walked down the streets in a poor locality of the town. And he was emotionally disturbed at the poverty, the starvation, and the misery that he saw all around him. That night, as he prayed, he said to God almost angrily, "Oh God, there is so much of poverty and suffering all around. How can you just let it be? Aren't you going to do anything about it?" And God gave him a reply in his heart, "My son, I've already done plenty to address the problem. For a start, I have made you." Well, I leave the matter at this point. I suppose the message is clear. Think about it, and I'd be happy to hear your responses to what I have just shared. Thank you. Thank you for your patience and your listening here.
Great work, Father Kenny. Great work. Thank you so much for that lovely message. For our second speaker, we have a very esteemed personality with us, a youth who is from the Diocese of Vasai, okay, and she has moved very high, and now from being a representative from the Diocese of Vasai, from being the secretary of the youth movement in Vasai, now she has donned the role of being the national president of the ICYM. Let me get a little introduction on her. Let me just tell you an introduction on her. Okay. Now she is doing her accounting and finance from Wilson's College, Mumbai, but she's on a sabbatical because she's now been elected as the national youth president of the CCBI. Okay, the ICYM. She is the first female president of the ICYM, which is the body, the youth body of the CCBI. And she is the youngest president to date. And one little footnote I want to add, that she worked last year with me in AVEC. So I'm very proud to introduce to you the next speaker, that is Josna. Okay, Josna De Souza, our next speaker. She's not online, but I'll try to get in touch with her and just give me a minute or something like that. Is Josna around? Oh gosh. She was having a little problem with her internet and she got connected finally, and now
because I've got to go for conference now.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
yeah. So I've got Josna on call. Okay, so can you hear her? If you can hear her, please put a thumbs up. Okay. Yeah, Josna, speak.
Okay, am I audible?
Yeah. Okay, I'm getting a lot of thumbs up. Okay, Josna, go for it.
A little faint, a little faint.
My internet sucks real bad. I mean, I don't know why I'm not able to connect, but it would have been very good if I could have seen your faces and connect. But either way, we got to make things work out. So for those who do not know me, hi everyone. My name is Josna De Souza.
Josna, go a little slow.
Okay. So sorry. I'm not sure. All right. So for those who do not know me, my name is Josna De Souza, and I am the National Youth President. So as of now, I am volunteering full time for the national office from Delhi, that is the head office. So I am right now talking to you all from Delhi. So since we are talking a lot about divine providence, there is this quote by Billy Graham that holds a lot of prominence in my life. And that is something that I keep super close to me. It says, the will of God won't take you where the grace of God cannot sustain you. Now, this particular sentence, this particular quote has so much weightage, so much depth, and it sounds so promising. And believe me, it is, okay? There has not been a single instance in my entire life where times are super difficult, you cannot even fathom, where I have not pacified myself with these words. So now when we reflect upon questions of providence as Christians, as Catholics, we begin to realize the grandness of what we're attempting, We are pondering on God's activity. For all the questions that are concerning towards God's providence, the very important question that's where our reflection ends is why. We keep on asking why, okay? The question is why. So what is impossible for us is to provide an intellectually satisfied answer to the why question. So for asking such a question can only call for the answer because God will it to be so. That is the only logical answer that we can give. Now to this question, there is another subsequent question, that is, why did God will it be so? Why is God making this happen? So now for this, there is no further illuminating answer, because as you know, this is one reason that the pattern of divine providence will, at least in this lifetime, always be a mystery for us. So now, you see, definitions are difficult, okay? Have you ever had a child ask you to tell them what a word means? And after giving them a definition, they respond by asking what the definition means. So it's a very confusing situation, right? So whenever that happens, we either fumble or fumble around doing poor verbal gymnastics, to help them understand, or we think of an example, a little story. Now, so often when we can think of a story or example, we discover that's where understanding begins. And the same can be true for theology. Now, these are the words we use in church or read in the Bible that we may not think twice about, because we've heard them for years. But it's ours to to define them, they begin to fumble around. So now in my experience, providence is one of those words. Now, if you were to ask me to define divine providence or tell about it, I might start with some examples like this. So now basically, I never really liked being part of the youth ministry, Youth ministry, like, be it any level, be it the parish level, diocese level, it involves a lot of politics, like not just among the higher ups, but also among the youth, So I never really wanted to join youth. But then I anyways decided that I will join youth, and I joined youth in 2017. Now my sole reason to join youth group was on selfish motive. So I realized that there was a lot of opportunity back then, So I was an opportunist. So I wanted to make use of those opportunities for my own benefit. Because you see, these platforms help you, into your personality development and whatnot. So now what has happened is I joined the parish youth in 2017. Now on the very first day I joined, we happened to have elections, parish elections. And I do not know how, but I happened to very assistant secretary, which is very rare, given you require a particular criteria and experience. But I got a lot of votes and I became the assistant secretary. Now, the very day I became assistant secretary, I was also sent as a representative, as a parish representative to the diocese. Now, again, this happens very rare, okay? Very rare. It happens that you get elected for two posts on a very same day, and especially for a newbie, for a person whose day one it is, it's absolutely a very big thing. So I got elected as an assistant secretary as well as diocese representative. So this was 2017. Now after joining diocese group in 2017, within 5 months I got another opportunity. That was I was sent as a girl representative. Am I going slow or am I fast? Hello? Hello? Hello, am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Yes, you're audible.
Do I need to go slower or anything
You're
like
good.
that?
You are good. Yeah, we can hear you very clearly. Yeah.
All right, thank you. So yeah, as I was saying, after joining the diocesan group, within 5 months, I got another opportunity to represent the diocese at Western Region Bishop Council. Now, it might not mean a big thing, but back then, for a youth who had just entered into the youth ministry, it was a very big thing, to sit, talk, and eat among all big bishops of the diocese of the entire Western region, that is Goa, Gujarat, Maharashtra. It is a big deal. So that was 2017. Now 2018, that is after joining the diocese, after 1 year of joining the diocese group, I got elected again as the assistant secretary, but this time for the diocese. Now once again, this was a major thing because not many people after 1 year of experience get to have a diocesan post, okay? And all these years, I wasn't spiritual. I'm telling you, I did not really like attending retreat or talks or anything. I wasn't spiritual at all. As I said, I was only doing this because I was an opportunist and I was taking as many opportunity as I could. So this was 2018. Now 2019 came, so now I wanted to stand for the post of parish president. But apparently I was not allowed to stand for the post of parish president because I was told that I require more experience. They wanted somebody with 3+ years of experience. So I was rejected as a candidate. I was told that wait for another year and then you can come for the post. But right now we cannot give you the post. I was disappointed, but then I was like, okay, no problem. All right, we can handle this. Then came the diocesan elections, and now for the diocesan elections, I wanted to stand for the post of secretary. Again, I did not win. Like, I did not get as many votes as the winner got, who was elected. So again, I was kind of disappointed, but then I was like, it's okay. It's nothing that I cannot handle. So you see, I did not get to be a parish president. I did not even get to be a diocesan secretary. So now this was in July 2019. In November 2019, we had Western Region elections, and somehow my diocese decided to send me as a representative to the Western Region. Now we had a lot of posts and a lot of people with a lot of experience experience and everything, but I ended up winning the elections for the girl representative. That is, out of 29 votes, I ended up getting 22 votes. So that was a very anonymous voting path. So that is how from parish to diocese to region, I finished in 2 years. So now this happened in November 2019. Now came elections, national elections in 2020. This was in February 2020, just few months after the election. So now I was representing my region, and I was at the national level. It is a big thing, for somebody to reach national level. So it was a achievement for me. And this is when it all started. Like after my regional elections, it is where always started. When I actually started started focusing into my spirituality, into my spiritual well-being, and not only seeing youth ministry or any other ministry as mere opportunity platform, but also a way to grow spiritually and get closer to God. I am still not perfect, still struggling, but this was the beginning. So now basically, as I was saying, the elections the national elections means a lot to a lot of people. It's a very big thing. So it also involves a lot of politics. So everybody was they had put up their mind that what posts they wanted, and all of them have a lot of experience. Like some of them had experience in youth ministry for 7 years, for 10 years, for 5 years. And all of them were about 25, okay? And I was just 20. I just turned 22 months before the elections, and I was just 20. So I was very worried, very worried. And I was also very restless as to what post should I stand, because I was getting a lot of support, a lot of motivation from the sisters and priests from the other dioceses, from other regions, because they wanted me to get a post. They wanted me to stand for a post. So I was in a dilemma. I was I do not know what to do and all of that. I remember we were, before the elections, the day before the elections, we had gone to the mother's tomb. So basically the elections were in Kolkata. So we had gone to the mother's tomb, that is same Mother Teresa's place. So we were all praying and everything. And I was in such a dilemma. I literally said these words to God. I said that if it is the will of God won't take me, with the grace of God cannot sustain me. So if I stand for the post of president and I do not end up winning, it simply means that God has better plans for me. And if I end up winning, it means that this was the plan that God had for me, and I will do it. Because president takes a lot of, it requires a lot of capability, a lot of, you need to be in the right set of mindset. You need to have that mindset. You need to be very capable, very responsible, very strong-minded. And I was none of that, to be honest. According to my sense, I was very timid, very unstable, and all of that. So now the elections took place, and I did not stand for the elections yet. I saw that there are 5 people. 5 of us stood for the elections, all 4 boys, and I was the last one to stand. So I look around and I see that these people had come very much prepared, okay? They had a big sheet, like a paper of their speech, election speech ready, and all of them were very ready. And I was like, oh my God, I have nothing prepared. I just woke up and I stood, and I was like, let me give it a try. And I do not know why I stood, but I stood for the elections. And I remember that basically they were supposed to give an election speech, but it seems we were short of time or something as such. So the chairman, Bishop, just straight away stands up and says that we do not have much time. So instead of giving a big election speech, just tell us about you and give us about the whole election thing in one sentence. So now everybody had to introduce themselves formally and then say why should they be the president or anything as such they wanted. And I remember saying this, I introduced myself, and I remember saying these words, like it came out of nowhere, and I said these things. If today I happen to be elected as the president, it will be solely because God wanted me to be the president and nothing else. These were my words. Like if I am the president today, it's only because God wanted me to be one. Otherwise, it's not happening. And I again won unanimously, which was a miracle. Because as I said before, these people were experienced in their late 20s, experienced with the youth ministry for quite a few years. And I was just in my 20s, I had just turned 20 with hardly 3 years of experience. was a great deal. And it's also another great deal because I am the first female president under the Conference of Bishop of India and the second female president under CCBI and CBCI. Also, I am the youngest president ever in all these years of Indian youth ministry in the country, and as well as abroad. I am the youngest president ever because it's very impossible for somebody to just within 2 or 3 years of joining the ministry, because normally you tend always after like around these particular age limits. So it is very impossible for people to be elected as a national president within 2 or 3 years of joining the ministry. So for me, all of this is divine providence, because it's God's intervention. Because I cannot explain to you any other way as to into youth ministry, who never wanted to be a part of youth ministry, who was not even spiritual, who is not even that woke when it comes to spirituality back then. God came from parish to diocese to region and reached national level in such a small young age. So you see, while divine providence is a theological concept that can be investigated in great depth and detail, we must remember that its meaning is rooted in our lives. More than that, when we describe God's providence, His care for us, basically, it is always and always connected to grace. God's providence, in short, is God's grace for us. So God's loving oversight of our lives is not mechanical, but rather personal. We may not always understand why we were allowed to be put into a difficult situation in the very first place. Like, that's the question. Like, why does God even allow us to be in such a position? Or like, why we couldn't just get a bit of a preview of the coming week, so that we could be better prepared for anything. But in every situation, whether we can explain it or no, we see God's providential hand moving to guide us, care for us, and provide for us. And as He does so, we are reminded that His power extends over all creation, as He moves over people and events everywhere. So God's providence is basically His to accomplish His purposes in His people. So that was my experience of sharing, because I am in such a place today where I'm very grateful for. And I wouldn't be who I am today or where I am today despite going through what I went through in life, which is altogether another chapter, another story. But I am very much grateful, because it's not for God's providence, it's not for God's will or His intervention, I wouldn't be at the place I am today. So this is my story, and this is what I wanted to share with you all, that no matter who you are, where you come from, sometimes what you need, what you think you want, is not what you need. And God has a plan for all of us. This might seem very cliche, very cringy when I say that God has a plan for us, but He does. And sometimes our plans do not work out merely because His plans are 10 times much better than ours. So
Josna, thank you so much for being on call with us. We are running out of time, Josna, so thank you so much. Josna, I would like to tell you that God has a big plan for you, that you're very talented. Youth does not matter. That you are young does not matter, but that God has a great plan for you. And He still has to do a lot of work through you. So just remain focused, and you guide the youth